We need a different vibe. It doesn't feel like partying. So I'm hoping when the speeches are done, we'll properly get down. And I know I'm terrible. I've got 2 left feet. So I know there are better dancers here. To Deputy Minister, Ms. Nomasonto Mutau, the chairperson of the MDDA board, Professor Hlengani Matebula, the MDDA board of directors, head of the public administration, Director General Pindile Baleni, Director General acting of the GCIS, and shareholder department of the MDDA, Ms. Monde Mnokwa, the Statistician General, Mr. Lusenga Maluleke, and I almost quoted statistics. I realize you are in my presence, I'm not going to quote the statistics. Representatives of the MDDA commercial funders and who do great work in funding the MDDA, CEOs of SABC, NEMISA, BRNDSA, and FPB, the sectoral and industry association representatives, community media practitioners, the AU media fellows that we are hosting as the GCIS, the veteran communicator and other veteran communicators, and my members of the community media. I saw the veterans there. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to you. I said good evening. Myself and Deputy Minister Nomasonto Mutau are honored to be part of this gathering to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Media Development and Diversity Agency, the MDDA, under the theme Democracy and Diversity, celebrating 20 years of access to information and media freedom through community media. We are truly privileged to mark a significant milestone within the media industry and reflect upon the evolution of the contribution of the community media sector to a democratic South Africa. And I'm honored that one of the people I quote in my speech is here, Ms. Kina, and it was quite interesting because initially I wrote it's a he, and I said, what if it's a she? And I wrote a they, and now it changed to a her, and I'm quite impressed. Historically, South Africa's mainstream media has largely been owned and controlled by the white establishment, in particular big business, and in the case of broadcasting, by the apartheid state. Ms. Kina goes and says, the views and perspectives, languages and values of this grouping were mirrored in all major newspapers, radio and television programs. During the apartheid era, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC, owned and controlled almost all public and commercial broadcasting. And although the SABC developed African language services, the information broadcast was ideologically distorted and services were inferior. I've done well. Yes. And even with the entry of the pay TV Mnet in 1986, it did not give greater access and greater pluralism in terms of ownership. And in the press, there were 4 major groups that owned the press in the print media, or 2 major main groups: the National Press, which is now NASPAS, and Periscope. And the English press was led by August Group and the South African Associated National Newspapers, which were later renamed the Times Media Limited. The Afrikaans press was dominated by the Finance Capital, and the English press by Finance and Mining Capital. So it is quite interesting that the MDDA is funded by commercial broadcasters and press in this country as part of developing the diversity of our media as its contribution. Because the press duopoly owned a plurality of daily and weekly newspapers and magazines, and they did nothing to develop the other sectors that were there. And this plurality, though, was without diversity. The English press reflected the views of white opposition parties, and the Afrikaans press reflected the views of the white ruling party, whereas the majority were excluded. This she quotes Low, Berger, and Hovers and Winston. Furthermore, newspapers relied heavily on the South African press supper, if you recall them. And that meant the integration in terms of news and reporting, integration in terms of ownership, integration in terms of also distribution, which meant that the majority, the voice of the majorities, the views of the majorities and their thinking were not reflected. Then the democratic government inherited a media landscape that was primarily owned, managed and staffed by whites, targeted at white audiences and reflective of their white views. Broadcasting was primarily state-dominated with inferior services targeted to black audiences. The traditional print media was highly concentrated, making it difficult for independent papers to enter the market. Alternative publications serving the poor, black, rural, and working class audiences had but all collapsed. I wouldn't want to narrate the history of media and its evolution, but want to focus on the 20 years of the MDDA and the critical importance of access to information through community media. The establishment of the Media Development and Diversity Agency in 2003 in terms of the MDDA Act of 2002. The South African government has made strong inroads into developing the community media sector to reflect the needs and aspirations of all South Africans. With a mandate of developing ownership and control of and access to media by historically disadvantaged communities, as well as by historically diminished indigenous languages and cultural groups, today is about celebrating the victories won and gearing up for the daunting challenges that lie ahead in an ever-changing landscape. Mr. Chairman, in an era marked by rapid exchange of ideas, the role of community media cannot be understated. It serves as a vital channel through which individuals can access, share, and contribute to a wealth of information that strengthens community. Community media platforms, such as local newspapers, local radio stations, and online forums, they must act as a lifeblood of our communities. They must provide a unique avenue for residents to stay informed about local events, developments, and issues that directly impact their lives. These platforms must offer a voice to those who might otherwise be unheard, ensuring diverse perspectives are represented. In their nature, community media fosters a sense of belonging and cohesion. When we have access to information about our surroundings, we are better equipped to engage with our community, participate in civic activities, and support local businesses and initiatives. This interconnectedness can lead to a stronger, more vibrant neighborhoods and communities, and a stronger country. Access to information through community media is not just a matter of convenience. It is a fundamental aspect of a healthy democracy. Informed citizens are better prepared to make decisions about their governance, hold their leaders accountable, and advocate for policies that align with their values. It is for that reason that we have taken a decision as the Presidency that we are going to maximize our utilization of community media. Even the OTT platform that we are building with NEMISA and Centec and MDDA, and we are trying to drag Brandese kicking and screaming. We are going to make sure it is the home of community media. We've committed that 70% of that content will be from community media, and then 30% of that content will be about government. And why is it necessary? It's necessary because we need to transition community media to their readiness into the digital platforms. And we can only do that by creating an environment where they can play without the hassle and the hurdles of financial obligations. But we don't want to end there. We want to use that platform to assist community media to generate income of their own through advertising and shared content and the other things that we're going to do. We're still working out the other modalities, but we have gone on there. We've done a soft launch. We started last week, Friday, in Potchefstroom. The presidential imbizo in Potchefstroom was broadcast live from the Goza TV. I thought you were going to hear. We have refused to be challenged by the daunting task ahead of us in our support for community media, and we remain resolute in supporting not only the MDDA, but the community media as it navigates its path towards a successful future against the very restrictive policy framework. And maybe I must explain the policy framework. I was sitting the other side of the table hardly 5 months ago. And I'm aware that in terms of commercial media, the big ones, when their licenses have expired, they are given extensions to renew. But if it's a community media, you lose your frequency. And it doesn't matter how much you do, there are no extension, you lose your frequency. And you say, how do we create a diversity and an enabling environment if you lose your frequency, whereas you've built a followership and a listenership and a viewership by merely not being able to complete very complicated forms that are set by our regulator. Whereas the big ones with money and resources can hire consultants to complete the forms, they are then given extensions and there's no threat to their frequency losses. I've challenged it previously and I've said we need to work towards that. Maybe because I'm now on this side of the table, we'll then push for that to happen. The other hassle that I find, I do not understand why do we have onerous requirements that if you are a community media, you can't graduate to become a small commercial media with ease. Because initially when the MDDA was established, it was not to proliferate community media. It was to encourage diversity, meaning you needed to build sustainable community media. And for them to be sustainable, you may need them graduating to become commercial media. You could put requirements on, restrictions on the content and influence of advertisers and so forth, but there should be a clearer path to graduating. I know community medias in my own area which are bigger than the public broadcaster listenership, yet they remain stuck and without advertisers, no matter how much compelling is their content that they broadcast. So those are the challenges that we are faced with, which we must then work together to enhance. It is essential that we recognize the significance of preserving and supporting community media, and that is the cardinal responsibility of the MDDA. Through its grant funding and other support, the MDDA has channeled resources to the community and small commercial media sector, contributing towards the expansion of ownership and control, as well as access to the media by ordinary South Africans. This achievement is evidenced by the burgeoning of both community and small commercial media, which is being published or broadcast in all languages that are spoken within South Africa. The agency has achieved this through prioritizing funding for these groups to enable them to start their own community projects. Since its inception, the MDDA has funded a total number of 586 community media projects. This number includes 321 community broadcast projects in the form of community radio and community TV stations, and 185 community print projects in the form of community newspapers, community magazines, and the small commercial print projects. I wish I could rave about the sustainability of all of the 586. As we speak today, we have got 260 community radio stations out of the 321 that has been funded over the period. If I go to community TV, it's a different story altogether. Actually, we must bow our heads in shame, not because of the MDDA lack of effort, because we have not funded the MDDA enough to make sure they can support the diversity of the media. We're having that discussion in the shareholder department and with the National Treasury around the funding of the MDDA to ensure the sustainability of the community media. The geographical spread of the MDDA projects are aligned with the district development model and has been instrumental in reaching underserved regions. As we journey into another 20 years, part of the primary focus of the MDDA must be the sustainability of the community media sector. The MDDA must do this in honor of the erstwhile champion of media development, the late Minister Esop Bahad, former minister in the presidency, who unapologetically championed media development and diversification of content, ownership and control. In his memory, the MDDA must ensure meaningful and profitable community media, and if wishes were horses, the MDDA would find the erstwhile owners of the Agenda magazine, which is amongst the group of the first community media projects that were funded by the MDDA back in 2004, and publish a commemorative publication on 20 years of the MDDA and a tribute to Minister Isop Bahad, and I'm sure the commercial funders will be ready with the checks. In memory of the efforts of the late Minister Isop Bahad, allow me to quote extensively Ms. Kina on a chapter on the state of media development and diversity in South Africa, where she wrote that government has utilized the strength of the market to make a number of significant changes in the media environment. There has been successes, but also limitations. In terms of broadcasting, a new regime of public, private, and community broadcasting has been introduced with significant pluralism gains. In terms of the press, there have been significant shifts in black and foreign ownership of the media, but concentration of press ownership still remains a problem. Further, new publications seem to have been focused either at the thinking upper or a tabloid lower ends of the market. There is no thinking working class press. It is against this background that the MDDA's mandate and funding policies need to be reviewed. The question remains, are the MDDA structures sufficiently powerful to effect meaningful change? Close quote. As we congratulate the MDDA on this significant milestone and take our first steps to the next 20 years, it would be remiss of me not to envision an MDDA, including its shareholder GCIS, that will ensure the emergence of a media that represent the aspirations, thinking, and values of the thinking working class press and broadcasters in the community and small commercial media. This will require that at a policy level, we review the powers, mandate, and structures of the MDDA to ensure an agile and responsive agency. It is important to strengthen community media because in an age dominated by global information network, it can be easy to overlook the invaluable contribution of local news outlets and grassroots platforms. Yet, these outlets are the bedrock of informed, engaged, and connected communities.